So many of my classmates when I was in school thought, oh, for some classes like, oh, I won't need what I'm learning in this class. And so they just need to get through it and the class is over in, 16 weeks and then I'm done. But I was kind of looking back and thinking through the classes that I took, and I wanted to go through some of them that were complained about and kind of see how I use them or if I use them. Because if I don't use them, well, then they had potentially a valid complaint. But if I do use them, then you want to make sure that you know that. And so anyways, we'll just step through a couple of these. One class, especially power engineers, are the worst about this. Most of them really don't like coding. I knew several who really did not like coding. And you know what? They don't code every day. That's not what they want to do. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that you don't want to know how to do it if you ever need to do it. And in my job, I use coding every single day. Like, it's a rare day that I have not written some kind of code in some form or another. Yes, it's not advanced coding like a software engineer would do, but these two classes I definitely used here at the top of the list: Computer Science 121 and 122. So I'm going to take these two classes off the list of classes that aren't used. So they have to go away. Physics classes, again, they're very hard classes and they are tough to get through. They aren't easy, but they are the theoretical basis for all that I do. So the more that I know them, the more I'll be able to understand more deeply what I'm working on and why it's working that way. So these classes also have to go off the list. EE 214 and 234 also are hard classes. These aren't just easy classes. These are hard classes. And again, it's similar. You could call it similar to coding, but it's the logic. And I use that logic a lot. We use those diagrams to convey information and convey how we're doing different things. So I definitely use 214. 234, technically, I have not used what's in that class. But, and this is a big but, I do sit next to people who use it all the time. And when they're trying to implement something that I've come up with, or say I've come up with this algorithm and I say, okay, hey, can you implement this? And I need to be able to understand what they mean when they come back to me and say, can't you do this better? This doesn't work very well in the code. And so I need to be able to communicate with them. So I don't use it directly, no, but I do use it indirectly. And when I took that class, I realized I don't want to do this every day, and I don't do it every day, but I still need it in my toolbox of things I can use if I want to, if I need to. So both of those have to leave the list too. Now, your math classes. Again, kind of some of the things in the math classes are kind of like, do I really need it? But again, you still need them because, again, they're the basics of what you use. So Math 220, and I left out the calc series because I hope that you realize you need those. Those, again, are the basics. But both of those classes I actually was using differential equations this last week. So yeah, and not every, well, this is, again, just my experience. So those classes have to go off the list. The block classes: electronics, fields and waves, signals and systems. Again, hard classes. They are not easy classes. And you might say, okay, a power engineer, do you really need to know electronics? You might think not, but a lot of the power system is going toward renewables, and a lot of those renewables use power electronics. And to understand power electronics, you have to understand electronics. So yes, I do use electronics. Then fields and waves. Again, it's similar to physics in the sense that it is the basics and the theory of why all these things work. So the more I understand it, the more I'll be able to use it and understand why, the why behind some of the things we do. Signals and systems. This is a funny one because, again, you think, oh, power engineer doesn't need signals and systems, but I actually use it a lot. My senior design class I used this class so much. so much in my senior design class. And my senior design project was very power-based. It was not, it wasn't in a different field. It was power-based. And I still use that class a lot, and I still use it today. So a lot of these classes, even though it seems like you won't use it, there's a lot of application behind these things that sometimes you might not realize. I definitely did not realize. I'd never thought I'd be using that class very much. I definitely use it a lot. So those three classes also have to go off the list. So now this list is getting a little shorter. The engineering, the writing, technical writing, even if you think you're a good technical writer, great. Use this class as practice because you are definitely going to be using this a lot. So that class has to also go off the list. Okay, this is the end of the list now. These three classes you definitely could argue I haven't used. And it's true, I have not used these classes yet. But consider the classes. One is probably in statistics. I haven't used it yet, although I probably will use it in my engineering career. There is a very large likelihood I could use it and probably will. And then electronic materials and statics. I don't know, maybe less likely, but they were engineering electives to broaden your view of engineering and to give you a little bit more perspective. And that is what they did. And so they also fulfilled what they were supposed to. So now you're probably thinking, oh, come on, do I really need to know everything in every class? And the answer is no, you don't need to know everything in every class, but you should still try to understand because there is on-the-job training. You have a team, so you don't need to be an expert in everything, and you can ask for help. But when you have a task that you need to use one of these classes that maybe you didn't understand as well, it's a lot easier if you tried to understand as much as you could when you were taking the class to go back and understand it later. And so it'll be a big time saver and a big stress saver too, if you try to understand what's going on. And this does not mean that you'll use all these classes every day. I don't use every class every day, but they're still in my toolbox of, I know I can go back and review this and understand what's going on pretty quickly so that I can move on and accomplish what I need to accomplish. So don't be worried. I'm not telling you have to understand every single thing the teacher says in every single class. That's not my point. My point is just try to understand as much as you can so it's easier to come back and understand when you need it.